So, relaxing into yourselves to more fully become aware of the present moment, the holy instant, the eternal present. Tuning into your breath, first just to locate yourself, not changing anything, just noticing your inhale and noticing the exhale. Inhaling, exhaling. When we put our attention on inhaling and exhaling, thought stops because we've concentrated all our attention on one simple thing, the breath. And when we turn the breath over to the Holy Spirit, it becomes a symbol of our God light, our God essence. And in that surrender, we're permitting ourselves to be breathed. And we are humbly noticing that we are not in control, that breathing just happens. And the safer we feel in the arms of the Holy Spirit, the more relaxed the breath becomes. It deepens in the body and it fills the body. There's more capacity for life energy carried on the breath. And physically to take in oxygen. And then the muscles relax. Let yourself feel whatever you're sitting or lying on. If you're standing, whatever you're standing on. Let yourself feel what's under you and behind you and be supported by that. And let yourself allow for this hour, hour and a half, that you are held and you are willing to know yourself as spirit. The nervous system can be observed. And again, we can just hand it over to the Holy Spirit to undo what the ego has made. So the nervous system goes from being primitive and animalistic, surveying the savannah for danger. It just goes to being held in God's arms. Safe at home while dreaming of exile. And as we telescope out, we get to see the dream of exile without identifying with it. And the breath can be experienced as pleasurable. It can feel like a wave moving through you. You can float on the wave of the breath. You can allow yourself to be danced like the leaves of a tree when the wind blows. And the exhales may become longer than your inhales and longer than you're used to. And that's good. That's like squeezing a washcloth, wringing out a washcloth. The exhale just wrings out everything that is not love. One way of describing being spiritually awake is that you're in a state of relaxed alertness. This alertness is not vigilant. It's not experiencing any kind of threat or danger. It's an alertness that's appreciative and interested in being alive. And in this intermediary transitional state of awakening from dreaming, recognizing itself to be the dreamer of the dream, and enjoying observing, like watching a movie. A movie can be tragic, and it's fine to have feelings, grief, sadness, anger, and those can be watched. So they're not repressed in order to be a good Course in Miracles student. They're allowed and they come through as an expression, and then they resolve. It's the ego that would get us stuck in a pattern of anxiety or depression, or a kind of, in the movies, what could be depicted as a noble grief. Uh, Often it's the man who is a widower and then he never gets over that woman. And we see that as very elevated and noble, but it's not. It's just attachment. So one sign that you're letting go of ego as your teacher is that we're in the flow. We're flowing. Things can be felt, and then things are moved through. They're actually moving through the changeless oneness of spirit that we are. And we're watching a parade of stories and events and emotions and thoughts, and just letting them move through. Ultimately, we reach a point where none of that needs to be observed because we've moved from the horizontal plane of time into a verticality of presence. And then we know our purpose is simply to shine with that presence as we conclude awakening from the dream of individual personhood. What I feel right now is a beautiful, tingling kind of, I'd say, soft electricity. And it feels like it's permeated this room. It feels to me that you're feeling it too. And let's linger here and luxuriate in this beautiful, internal, radiant knowing, this recognition of what we are. As if we're filled with a huge diamond prism. that seems to originate within us, within the heart, filling the torso, and then it just keeps enlarging until there's a flip and a sense that we are within this diamond light. Which is ever expanding. You may experience it as golden light, like the light behind Jesus here in the classroom. That light symbolizes the Holy Spirit's loving light, unified, exquisite, peaceful, a peace that passeth understanding, joyous, free, boundless. It's the same light within each of us. It's a beauty, an exquisite beauty within all of us. And we can relate to ourselves this way, no matter what our life situation, no matter what our age or personal responsibilities or health issues or wealth issues. This light is ever present. This memory of God within us, also called the Holy Spirit, is always here. Now, if you're feeling good, you can remain just as you are. And if you're ready to come back into the room, then take your time opening your eyes. Move slowly and gently. I sent out an email with a quote from chapter 11, the section 6 that we've been in. And the quote says, "Learning of Christ is easy, for to perceive with him involves no strain at all." And that's what we were just doing. Learning of Christ is easy when we open to Christ and allow. It's the opening to Christ and allowing that's difficult. But once we've managed to do that, the rest just flows effortlessly. That's the third step of the forgiveness practice, is to allow the healing to miracleize through us. I think I just made up that word. Miracleize. So then I wrote in this email, we again, yet again, started reading Waking to Redemption last week and got no further than paragraph 1, if I'm remembering correctly, which was pretty funny because the week before we only made it through paragraph 1. But then I said, it remains true that if we get it at any point in A Course in Miracles, we need read no further. If we have that click of recognition, if we tune into the truth, if some insight really makes it through to us, we don't have to keep reading and reading and reading. The Course is simply there, tuning us into the truth. And wherever we get a clear signal, it makes sense actually to hang out there and absorb there, be a good sponge, be spongeable. So it doesn't matter how much mileage we accumulate, I said. In other words, reading the 1,200 pages and then the pamphlets and getting through all the material. It's how much we relax and absorb that determines the amount of undoing that occurs. Before every class, I tune into Jesus and I ask that I be a clear conduit for his teaching to come through me purely. And then I trust that I get out of the way. And we all can do that when we read the Course at any given moment. Jesus, help me absorb the message beneath these words. Help me be sincere in absorbing the wisdom of this Course, whatever comes to you, spontaneously. And if you don't have any words, just your heart. And if you want words, there are plenty of prayers in A Course in Miracles that you could use. And then I said, when we relax and absorb, that determines the amount of undoing that occurs. I said, in that spirit, let's pick up where we left off, although we never know for sure until we arrive in the unlearning classroom. So for many, many years, I've called this in my own mind, this meeting and any class that I've taught on A Course in Miracles, the unlearning classroom. And I have a website that's not live, but I have the domain name Unlearning Classroom because I like it so much. But it's just confusing to have a lot of websites, there's no need for that either. But here we are in the Unlearning Classroom. Sometimes I call it satsang. That's just a community devoted to recognizing the truth within. That's a yoga word, a Sanskrit word. Sat, I think, means truth. Satsang, a community of truth seekers. But I like to leave out the word seekers because we're here and we can experience in any given moment, to some extent, something other than 100% absorption in the ego. We can get free of 100% absorption in the ego just sitting together. And we are. So I do think that this is what's going to happen, that we're not going to pick up where we were in Waking to Redemption, but we're going to look at the forgiveness practice more. And so I'm looking at lesson 23 in the workbook. And then in part 2 of the workbook, we might also, if we have time, read the instruction, what is forgiveness? Because it took me a very long time to really be clear on what forgiveness is. I knew that it was not the human definition of forgiveness. And I understood that Jesus was saying it doesn't have anything to do with trying to look past somebody else's objectionable behavior. Just because I didn't like it doesn't even mean it was bad. And it doesn't mean trying to excuse something that in my heart I cannot excuse or condone something. And it doesn't mean being superior to somebody else. Well, I'll let you off the hook because I'm a better person than you, or I'm going to try and forget this and leave it in the past. It's none of that. That's not what forgiveness is in A Course in Miracles. Forgiveness is for giving our entire belief in the ego thought system to the Holy Spirit. Forgiveness is for giving up our attachment to personal identity. And forgiveness only really takes place between me and my inner teacher, the Holy Spirit. And when I'm able to tune into my inner teacher and give over willingly, even if it's just a tiny willingness, my beliefs, my interpretations, my attachments, all the unconscious material that I'm not aware of that makes a blockage to the awareness of love's presence, all the things I cherish and love that I'm afraid the Holy Spirit would make me sacrifice if I were to place my entire life in Holy Spirit's hands, all my fears and doubts that the Holy Spirit can't really show up the way it promises. Little by little, starting with personal specifics, the forgiveness practice is giving everything over. And in order to give this over, we have to become aware that there's something to give. So a lot of us have been long-term course students, and we know this by now, at least intellectually, conceptually. And then, some of us are brand new students, and we don't know this. But even knowing it is elusive. And so absorbing the depth and the radicalness of the forgiveness practice now in this time together shifts us. It detaches us little by little from personal identity, from taking myself to just be a body interacting with other bodies. We do practice with the other bodies because the ego came up with the story of the physical world and the people in it and everything in it as a mirror to prove the ego's existence. Everything we're looking at in the world and even pinching ourselves only proves to the ego, mirrors back and forth to the ego that reality is physical, that planet Earth is physical, that physical things happen to us, that we're at the mercy of something larger and bigger than ourselves, none of which is true. And there's a place, and maybe more than one in the Course, where Jesus says, why would you ask to be taught by a sparrow when you could ask of an eagle? And when Ken Wapnick would talk about those sections, it would be hard for me to discern between the word ego and eagle. It would get really confusing. He was saying, why don't you ask the ego? And I'm like, the ego? And then he's like, the eagle. But what? So I'm telling you, why would we ask a sparrow about inner wisdom when we could go to the eagle, the grandeur of the Holy Spirit, and find out, ah, this is actually true. It's not just a spiritual idea that I'm not this person and not this body. And this is not going to be taken away from me. It's going to be repurposed by the Holy Spirit as the transitional way that I continue to awaken from this dream. That my purpose has changed from the ego's agenda for continuing to sleep and the Holy Spirit's agenda for us to wake up. But only we choose it. Because in the end, we discover we are awake. We never really were sleeping. That was delusional. That was insanity. That was hallucinating visually, auditorially, um, tastefully. Oh. So that's a big leap, and that's something not to scare ourselves with by saying, wow, in this moment, what really seems real to us is virtual reality. It's like a video game. What's happening right now is not reality with a capital R. But we don't have to just swallow that whole. We're going to take bite-sized pieces, as Susan and I were talking about before class, and digestible little bites and chew and swallow and, let spirit take its course from there. And in that way, the course is gentle. That's probably one reason that it's so long and so repetitive, so that we can digest. It says in the Course, you will not be abruptly hurled into heaven. What a funny kind of oxymoronic phrase. Don't worry, you won't be abruptly hurled into heaven. Oh. So let's read lesson 23, which breaks out the forgiveness practice into 3 steps. And then you start to see it all through A Course in Miracles. You see it in the text, you see it in the workbook lessons, you see it everywhere. Once you start to get the hang of the 3 steps, which I will boil down to in this way, there's different ways of putting it. But step 1 is becoming aware of what the problem is. I'll say is, eventually we find out there is no problem, but that's at the top of the ladder back to heaven. So right now, there seems to be a problem. We don't know what it is. We don't know what's in our best interests, but we finally, something inside us led us to A Course in Miracles, led us to a spiritual path. Something inside us knows that there's more than meets the eye, that there's a greater intelligence at work. And now in the course, Jesus is showing us where the problem lies, what the problem is, and how the problem can be addressed. And in A Course in Miracles, you don't just skip to, I tune into the light, because the light will reveal itself as we remove the blockages to the light. So you could think of it as like a hoarder, like we're hoarders and our homes are just packed with newspapers and stuff. And the light is there. It's been in the house the whole time. Our work as course students is to start taking the garbage, the junk out of the house, out of the house. Eventually we find out, wow, I'm not just this house. That's the undoing practice. And then the Holy Spirit has the task of undoing what the ego made. But we have the task of looking with the Holy Spirit at what the blockages are. And we haven't even known what the blockages are. So first Jesus is pointing them out and saying, this is a blockage, this is a blockage, you haven't recognized it. Let's look at it now. So recognition and increased awareness and acknowledgement that there's a problem different than what I thought. That's all the first step of the forgiveness practice. And the second step is willingness. Willingness to turn what we're finding out about ourselves over to the Holy Spirit, over to Jesus. That's the second step. Those are the only two things that we need do. Jesus says we need do very, very little as a course student. Acknowledging what Jesus is showing us, the first step, we don't have to believe it. We can be resistant to it. He's just saying, just hear me out. That's all. Just hear me out. That's the first step. And if we hear him out and he starts to make sense to us, we start like nodding, like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I would get what I call clicks of recognition. Something in me I would breathe a little easier, literally, as I read the course. Oh, breathe a little easier. Notice that. Oh, over and over and over again. Clicks of recognition, breathing a little easier. Then willingness. Okay, now I'm actively willing to turn away from the ego and turn to the Holy Spirit. It's a simultaneous thing. It means that we're letting go of the ego's hand and we're taking hold of Jesus's hand. But the Zen coneness of this is that you have to pretend you only have one hand. And what the ego likes to do is we have two hands in the world of duality, and we let go of the ego with one hand, but we're holding on with the other. And then we give Jesus one hand, but we're still holding on to the ego with the other. And that's that clenched fist that we don't even know how clenched it is. We don't even realize that we have to unclench this psychic fist that's trying to hold on to the ego. And like Yogi Berra would say, when I come to a fork in the road, I take it. Well, what happens when you take a fork in the road? Your body splits in half. So that's not going to work. Can't do it that way. You have to let go of the ego's hand. And those are the holy instants that the Course talks about. And they can be very temporary. The holy instant is timeless. It is not temporary. But our venturing into the holy instant is temporary. Because at first, it's very hard for us to tolerate the intensity of God's love and God's light. So everybody, let me remind you, just read slowly and don't worry about fumbling words or getting something incorrectly. Don't worry about any of that. And don't think about understanding what you're reading. Just get out of your way as much as possible and just read it. And those of us listening for the first reading, just be spongeable, just absorb without making sense of anything. At some point along the way, I understood that the message, the major message of A Course in Miracles is the light, you could say language, the light within the Course and beneath the words, deeper than the words. And so tuning into that light is more powerful than understanding the words. And then we'll go back and we'll read again. So we'll look at the words too.
Good morning, family. Lesson 25. 23. I can escape the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. The idea for today contains the only way out of fear that will ever succeed. Nothing else will work. Everything else is meaningless. But this way cannot fail. Every thought you have makes up some segment of the world you see. It is with your thoughts, then, that we must work if your perception of the world is to be changed.
If the cause of the world you see is attack thoughts, you must learn that it is these thoughts which you do not want. There is no point in lamenting the world. There is no point in trying to change the world. It is incapable of change because it is merely an effect. But there is indeed a point in changing your thoughts about the world. Here you are changing the cause. The effect will change automatically.
The world you see is a vengeful world, and everything in it is a symbol of vengeance. Each of your perceptions each of your perceptions of external reality is a pictorial representation of your own attack thoughts. One can well ask if this can be called seeing. Is not fantasy a better word for such a process? And hallucination a more appropriate term for the result?
You see the world that you have made, but you do not see yourself as the image maker. You cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause. This is what salvation means. For where is the world you see when its cause is gone? Vision already holds a replacement for everything you think you see now. Loveliness can light your images and so transform them that you will love them, even though they were made of hate. For you will not be making them alone.
The idea for today introduces the thought that you are not trapped in the world you see because its cause can be changed. This change requires first that the cause be identified and then let go so that it can be replaced. The first two steps in this process require your cooperation. The final one does not. Your images have already been replaced. By taking the first two steps, you will see that this is so.
Besides using it throughout the day as the need arises, 5 practice periods are required in applying today's idea. As you look about you, repeat the idea slowly to yourself first, and then close your eyes and devote about a minute to searching your mind for as many attack thoughts as occur to you. As each one crosses your mind, say, I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts about blank. Hold each attack thought in mind as you say this, and then dismiss that thought and go on to the next.
In the practice periods, be sure to include both your thoughts of attacking and of being attacked. Their effects are exactly the same because they are exactly the same. You do not recognize this as yet, and you are asked at this time only to treat them as the same in today's practice periods. We are still at the stage of identifying the cause of the world you see. When you finally learn that thoughts of attack and of being attacked are not different, you will be ready to let the cause go.
Thank you, everyone. Beautiful. Okay, so let's break it out. Lesson 23's central theme is I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. Now, if you're new to the course, and if you think of yourself as a nice person, you may not think you have attack thoughts. Or you may know yourself very well to be angry and be aware that you have plenty of attack thoughts. At the root of all attack thoughts is the one original attack thought that we could separate from the mind of God and do better than God, that being an extension of God, being God's creation, being in the all that is, wasn't enough. The tiny mad idea that arose basically said, hey, come with me and separate from God mind so that you can experience something even better. So that's the original attack thought. Yeah, we don't have to say more about that right now. So let me just break the title out a little bit more. So we're going to take it personally. I can escape from the world I see. So now we're talking about the body's eyesight there, what we're looking at out there. I can escape from the world I see by giving up, that's the forgiveness practice, by giving up, let's say, to the Holy Spirit, or giving in to the inner teacher, attack thoughts. Thoughts. It's not just words and language. It goes way deeper than that. It's this original thought of, I can separate from God. I'm going to follow that idea. That idea turns out to be terrible. We don't know that right now, though. So then it says, the idea for today, I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts, contains the only way out of fear that will ever succeed. So the first idea that entered God's mind, interrupted us being a oneness joined as one, was this idea of separating. And the ego spins that idea as being sinful, unforgivable, and fearful. It's fearful. The ego thought system is a fearful, full of fear thought system. So today's idea that I can escape from this fearful thought system by giving up attack thoughts interrupts the closed system that the ego has ingeniously constructed of sin, guilt, and fear that keeps us on its hamster wheel, enclosed with no way out. Somewhere in the Course, Jesus says, the ego thought system is foolproof, but it is not God-proof. God gives us another idea. Everything comes down to ideas in A Course in Miracles. Course in Miracles is not talking about behavior in the world. It's based on ideas. One of its main themes is ideas leave not their source. The ego says, yes, an idea can leave its source. So let's say an idea is the Son of God, creation. And the ego says, you can leave your source, God. And Jesus says, no, you can't leave your source. It doesn't make any sense, and you haven't left your source. You're hiding from yourself. And I'm going to show you how, so you can stop doing that when you're ready, when you have suffered enough. That's why today's idea contains the only way out of fear that will ever succeed. If we turn to the ego, nothing will succeed, because the ego will do anything to keep us in its thought system, its fearful thought system. Nothing else will work. Everything else is meaningless, because the ego thought system is meaningless and chaotic. It doesn't have a true purpose. The ego thought system's quote unquote purpose is just to keep itself existing. That's why I always experience it as juggling. It's just juggling nothing. It's just juggling sin, guilt, and fear. But this way, the Holy Spirit's way, Jesus's way, cannot fail. Every thought you have makes up some segment of the world you see. It is with your thoughts, then, that we must work if your perception of the world is to be changed. And perception, in A Course in Miracles, at its root, is interpretation. It's not just aligned with your sensory apparatus. Perception is interpretation. Now, God mind doesn't have to interpret anything, but ego mind interprets everything. It judges, and it divides, and it blames, and it attacks, and it holds grievances and grudges and resentments, and it feels victimized, and it persecutes, but it excuses that by saying, you made me do it. That's how the underlying thought of the ego thought system operates. And when Jesus says, every thought you have makes up some segment of the world you see, it is with your thoughts then that we must work, he's bending down as if talking to a child. He's coming down to our level, and he's saying, he's talking to us in our language. So if we're a pre-verbal child going goo goo gaga, he's saying to us goo goo gaga goo gaga. He's talking to us as if we have a lot of thoughts. We don't. We just have one divisive thought. I could separate from God. That's the big underlying thought. And then all the other thoughts and all the languages and all of the means of communication that the ego provides, that's the way that we bury ourselves. That's the way that we're hoarders in the house and cover up the light with darkness through all of this complexity. And we're unaware of all of it. We take it all for granted as reality. Paragraph 2. If the cause of the world you see is attack thoughts, this initial attack on God, you must learn that it is these thoughts which you do not want. Now, some of us do the workbook first. We haven't even read the text. We don't know about the metaphysics underlying the course, but Jesus is talking to us here in the workbook just as if we do. Because this I in the title, I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts, we're taking it to be me, but Jesus is always talking to the collective I that's having a case of mistaken identity because it's lost in a false self of the ego. But it's the one collective Son of God, that portion of God mind that went with the tiny mad idea. That is what Jesus is talking to throughout the entire Course in Miracles. Everything else is imaginary. You could say a frenemy, that the ego never really gives us a friend. It gives us a frenemy. That's everybody in our life. It's the mirror is a frenemy. So it's a friend who can deceive us, who can betray us. And Jesus is always talking to us at the higher level, but understanding that we're taking it within this very limited construct of being separate. Jesus knows when countries go to war with each other and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people attack each other and are maimed and killed, that the Son of God is simply attacking itself and destroying itself and harming itself, and it's masochism. He'll say more about that a little lower down, because now is one of my favorite sentences in the Course. There is no point in lamenting the world. There is no point in lamenting the world. It doesn't mean that we don't have compassion. It doesn't mean that we suppress the feelings that we're having. It means that it's possible when we join with the Holy Spirit to rise above the battleground and see with the Holy Spirit's vision a completely different way. There is no point in trying to change the world. In chapter 21, Jesus tells us, seek not to change the world. Choose to change your mind about the world. Seek not to change the world. to operate in the world in a way that you think is going to solve all of humanity's problems. Choose willingly with your free will to change your mind about the world. You know, non-dual teachers will say all the time, if you want to save the world, find out who you really are. That's where all your healing power lies. That's where compassion really lives. Tune into yourself. You go to a 12-step program, they'll say, keep the focus on yourself. Stop pointing out there and saying, if only that would change and that would change and that would change. You know, if only they would fix the pothole on the block that I walk down all the time. You know, but until they do, I'm going to walk down that same block and fall in that same pothole. Choose to change your mind. So it is incapable of change, the world, because it is merely an effect. But there is indeed a point in changing your thoughts about the world. Here you are changing the cause. The effect will change automatically. So the cause of the world is that the ego says that God is going to punish us and we better run. And then the ego says, without acknowledging that it got us into this mess in the first place, the ego says, follow me, I have a safe place for you. And it invents this amazing make-believe world, this physical world. But its underlying cunning idea is that if we join the ego in this world, we'll forget the mind. And the mind is what we really are. You could call the mind spirit. You could call it the heart of God. It's, you know, immaterial, timeless, formless, changeless. And so the cause of the physical world and personal identity is a fear-based thought system. And the effect of a fear-based thought system is fear. Everything is an aspect of that fear. Everything that is not love and all-inclusive comes under the umbrella of fear. The cause is fear, the effect is fear. Paragraph 3, Jesus tells us, the world you see is a vengeful world, and everything in it is a symbol of vengeance. Because the world is mirroring our guilty feelings about having attacked God, killed God, and now, magically, God has risen from the grave and is going to get back at us. So it's God's revenge on us, but that's only because we're not acknowledging that we're angry at God. We're angry at God that it hasn't acknowledged our existence, hasn't acknowledged this amazing feat of separating from God and being our own, being on our own now. God does not acknowledge that in A Course in Miracles because it would make the error real. If God acknowledges that something happened, then God's saying it's possible and you achieved it. But it is not possible to separate from God mind, which is defined as wholeness. Wholeness cannot be divided. And God's lack of acknowledgement of us is the best thing that ever happened because it means that reality withstands imagination and that we can recognize that we're at home in God, dreaming of exile. That's all. And we can awaken from that dream. Just like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz wakes up at home in Kansas with Auntie Em sitting at her bedside. It's amazing and it's simple, and that's actually what's going on here. So we need to be willing to take in more and more and more that this incredible taking for granted what we are is a huge mistake. That right now, all of us are dreaming, but at least we're aligned with the Holy Spirit. And so the dream is now being used to awaken. whereas the ego uses the dream to keep us sleeping. And it can hook us with everything all day long. It's very easy to keep us sleeping. But there comes a point for everyone where we just start to wake up. Just like if you tried to sleep in bed for 48 hours, after a while, you'd finally be like, I got to get up. My eyelids won't stay down. It's just at some point we have to get up. And we are assured in A Course in Miracles that everybody awakens at some point. We can procrastinate for a long, 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 long time, but not forever. I just learned a funny word. Yeah, Arthur's still here. So Arthur recommended I watch a documentary called The Principles of Pleasure. And it's a 3-part series on maybe Netflix. And I watched it, and it's very interesting. And I recommend it to everyone here because in general, people don't talk about sex enough. They don't allow themselves to think of their bodies sexually. And any way in which we split off from ourselves keeps us buried in the ego thought system. So I dare you to watch The Principles of Pleasure. And one of the people coins a word. They say that they not procrastinate, that they use procrastination. And I think they highly recommended it. Like more people should procrastinate. So they're talking about what if we were to feel pleasure without guilt? What if we were allowed in society, in our culture, in religions, to know our bodies, to touch our bodies, and for both male and female and everybody in between, to be invited to experience pleasure? I mean, there's a whole world of pleasure that is a form of happiness and freedom that we just X out. And as course students, we have to look at everything. And that's an easy area to overlook. Sex and personal pleasure. So thank you, Arthur, for that. Okay. The world you see is a vengeful world, and everything in it is a symbol of vengeance. Everything. Before we give it to the Holy Spirit to be used for something other than vengeance, everything, the trees, the rainbows, everything says separate from God. That's like if you turn it over and look at the label, it says separate from God, ego. Okay. Each of your perceptions of external reality, in quotes, is a pictorial representation of your own attack thoughts. Lesson 15 told us your thoughts are images that you have made. Your thoughts are pictures that you have made. The thought is separation. The pictures mirror back to us separated objects. That's the whole ego thought system that we're in. A month ago or so, I told you that I had this insight that it's like I'm at Coney Island about to walk into the House of Mirrors. I'm about to buy my ticket. And I realized if I go in there, I'm doomed. I'll only see everything through the House of Mirrors. There's no truth in there. So in order to practice forgiveness, I have to not buy the ticket. I have to catch myself in an interaction with anybody or anything when I start to get upset, angry, defeated, whatever it is, right at that moment, and turn to Holy Spirit and say, this is my hook. This is the moment. I'm about to step in there and be consumed. And I don't want to go there, but I don't know what to do. The best I can do is just turn to you. That's it. And then stuff happens. Good stuff happens. One can well ask if this, a pictorial representation of your own attack thoughts, can be called seeing. Is not fantasy a better word for such a process? and hallucination a more appropriate term for the result? And this is why A Course in Miracles is called a spiritual psychotherapy path, because he's talking about hallucinating and fantasizing and how the mind really works, how the ego really works, and how the unconscious really affects us. You see the world that you have made, but you do not see yourself as the image maker. So we could read that you see the world that you have dreamed up, but you don't see yourself as the dreamer. You cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause. Within the world, it's just a mess. Doesn't even come close to describing the state of the world today. And it's always been terrible. There have always been terrible wars and crimes against humanity by humanity. And it's just, but you cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause. This is what salvation means. Undoing our belief in the cause of the world without running around and telling people you shouldn't be upset about this health problem, or you shouldn't be upset that that person died. No, not that at all. Not that at all. It's just that as we tune into the light within us, that light enlightens any response that we'll give, and it will always be a loving response. And that's where we need to go, within, which I might also call above, which the Course also calls below, sink down and inward. It's directionless, but it's not far away where we're turning to. Jesus is right here in the classroom. And if you don't want a human to relate to, the light behind Jesus is really the teacher. And the light is a teacher of unlearning. It shines away the darkness. So this is what salvation means. For where is the world you see when its cause is gone? Vision already holds a replacement for everything you think you see now. Loveliness can light your images and so transform them that you will love them, even though they were made of hate, for you will not be making them alone. So we move from being in a hall of mirrors, which are all propaganda for the ego to reflect its vengeance back on itself and not take responsibility for it. We move above the battleground into seeing everything through the reflection of God's loving light. Now everything is reflected with God's loving light. And the images we see may be the very same images, but our purpose is to respond to everything with love. So we experience love or a call for love. And while we're established, even momentarily, even temporarily, in the holy instant, in the timeless light of pure knowing, you'll find that something moves through you and there's a knowing as to whether there are words to be said or places to go or money to be donated or just to shine, just meditatively to amplify or allow yourself, your light to be amplified so that you're simply a presence, a powerful, radiant presence healing the world. You could sit at home and do that. Yes, Susan.
Could you elaborate on what is meant by its cause? What does that mean in the Course in Miracles?
It is referring here to the thought, I think, the cause of the attack thought. Let me just go to, what sentence are you looking at?
In the fourth paragraph where you just read, You cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause.
The world's cause.
Yeah.
You cannot be saved from the world, and you could substitute the word ego. The world is the ego. So you could say, you cannot be saved from the ego, but you can escape from the cause of the ego. And the cause of the ego, or the cause of the world, is this idea that we could separate from God. And in doing so, that God has attacked us. But actually, we're discovering we've attacked God, but that can't be. Because even if we try to attack God, God is invulnerable. And so we haven't done any harm. And that's the cause.
Okay, so the cause really originates from our separation from God.
From the separation thought. That's right.
Thank you.
Which we call the ego.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Alma.
Okay. Sometime back there was a song, We Are the World, We Are the People. And it dawned on me as we were reading this that I would sing that song, but I took myself out of it, even though it says we are the world. I didn't see me also as the world. And now I'm looking at the lesson. It hit me that, wait a minute, you are the world. And everyone is the world. So if I'm riding down the street and I see someone, that's the world right there. And I was asking myself, am I getting it that this world that we're talking about is me? Am I correct? I just want to ask that question. I am the world. You are the world. They are the world.
If I'm understanding your question, Alma, when we join with the Holy Spirit, we experience ourselves as a collective one son.
Mhm.
So then there is this knowing that the world and me and us are all the same, even if we appear as many, many, many different aspects, but our source is the same, and our heart is the same, and our purpose is the same, which is to awaken to the love that we are. And that's the spirit in which We Are the World was sung.
Okay, I just got a little confused because even when it says be in the world, but not of the world, it is still talking about a collective. Okay.
Yeah, Jesus is talking to the one son, but he understands that we're hearing him as an individual.
Okay.
He understands that, and that's the way in which he gets down on his knees and talks to us as if we're little. And so it seems like there are many singers in We Are the World, but actually in their minds, they've joined with one purpose, which is to heal.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I had that separated thought. I have to bring it into one. Thank you.
Yeah, it's worth listening to that song again and seeing if you just kind of melt into it.
Okay,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Don.
Good morning, at least here. So the world we see is a vengeful world. So the idea I have is that really there are emotions that we like to have, and there's emotions we don't like to have. But as an ego, the emotions I like to have are of the senses and satisfy the senses and satisfy the ego. So it really, giving up attack thoughts is also looking where I have a looking at an attraction even that I have. And I suppose that attraction could be spirit informed. And then the love that is present will be God's love. On the other hand, mostly it's going to be ego love. And there won't be a real joining. it will be still separating and false in a sense. Why is this important to me? Well, I mean, Jesus talks about, following his plan, and and as a sensuous human being, I'm attracted to comfort and I'm attracted to other sense satisfying things, and they can be a substitute for God's love. Now, on the other hand, again, if the purpose is higher, then those same attractive things to the ego can be soul satisfying if I in what I'm trying to understand.
Everything can be used by the ego for the very purpose it was made, to keep us separate. And that means that everything ultimately serves me. Everything is ultimately about my satisfaction, getting my needs met, my survival, my pleasure. When it comes to the ego, everything is self-service. And if we're honest with ourselves, we get that. It doesn't mean that we've never been selfless and unconditionally loving in our lives. That's the part of us that is awakening to spirit and has experienced serving something greater than ourselves, realizing that our natural impulse is to give. The ego has a very strong attraction to guilt, to death, to what else are in the obstacles to peace? We can look at that, but especially guilt, which is also self-hatred. And so if we are masturbating, then we're doing it with the ego and we're having a temporary pleasure and it's over very quickly. And if we want to turn that over to the Holy Spirit, then we can say, especially let's say you have a sex addict problem, or you're addicted, a way that you self-soothe is masturbation, and people use this. You turn to the Holy Spirit and you say, I do this thing, I feel guilty about it, I'm ashamed, it's a secret, I do it many times a day, I shouldn't, and I give it to you, Holy Spirit. I'm going to continue masturbating, but I'm giving myself up to you. I'm not bringing you down into my dream and saying, sit next to me in this chair while I watch pornography. I'm saying I'm willing to interrupt my habit and tune into you and say, I feel helpless and I know there's a better way. So I'm just turning to you. That's it. What we will feel rather than emotions per se is a peace that passeth understanding. There will be a relief. There will be a sense of the shame going away. And ultimately, what we call bad habits fall away. And I have seen this more than once with course students, and it can be spontaneous where they're not like counting a 90-day challenge to stop masturbating compulsively. No. No, but at some point in time, after years and years of this problem, and compulsions don't feel good, suddenly, like almost overnight, I've had people report to me, I'm not doing this thing anymore. And that can apply to anything and everything. Well, why don't we leave that there? So maybe we'll actually finish this lesson in this class, and then I'd love to play you a song. We're up to paragraph 5. The idea for today, I can escape from the world I see with the body's eyes by giving up attack thoughts, introduces the thought that you are not trapped in the world you see with your eyesight because its cause can be changed. The world we've been seeing was caused by the ego promising to hide us safely in this world. And we're not interested in that cause anymore. It's a fearful cause and it's a deceptive cause. It's not true. The ego's not telling us the truth. It's not putting us in a safe house. It's putting us in a prison so that we won't remember that we are a magnificent mind, free. So the ego imprisons us and lies about it. And when we go back to the Holy Spirit and say, I am interested in changing my mind. How do I do that? This is what he tells us. This change requires first, number one, if you want to write this down, first, that the cause be identified. That's the whole acknowledgement process. That's the hearing Jesus out process. That's the taking under consideration everything that Jesus is showing us about what this world is actually based on. And I have a note to read chapter 27, section 8, if you'd like to do that on your own. First, the cause be identified. Number two, and then let go. That's the little willingness. We say to the Holy Spirit or to Jesus, now that you've shown me the cause and I'm taking it in, I do have a tiny willingness to let go of the cause, to let go of this fear-based thought system. I don't fully understand any of this, but I'm still willing to trust you, Jesus. Number three, so that it can be replaced. The Holy Spirit replaces the cause by flowing a healing through us, flowing light through us, which dissolves the darkness. And that healing is the miracle that then naturally radiates from us and heals thousands across the world that we'll never even know about. And then if we hang out in the pause for love, the receiving of that healing miracle, and we stay, then what is reflected back to us is very different than what we saw just a moment ago with the eyes of vengeance. The first two steps in this process require your cooperation. The first one, that the cause be identified. We have to be open to seeing everything differently. We have to be open to dropping everything we've ever believed and depended on and taking in what Jesus is explaining to us. And the second step is the willingness to let go. Let go of the whole ego thought system without even knowing fully what we're doing, but the willingness. The first two steps in this process require your cooperation. He calls it a process because in the world of time, which is where we experience ourselves right now, things take time. We will not be abruptly hurled into heaven. We need bite-sized pieces to digest and dissolve our fear enough that we can tolerate staying with the Holy Spirit longer and longer. The final step does not require our cooperation. The third step of the forgiveness practice is receiving. It's staying to receive. It's my kitten story where I would bring everything to the Holy Spirit. I did steps 1 and 2 so well, but I ran away. I ran away at that moment where if I would stay, then I would receive. Receiving is discovering there's all this pride and all of these blockages to being humble and allowing help to come through. And it's not just pride, it's also fear. The fear that the ego has instilled in us that what is loving and taking care of us is actually threatening and annihilating. And that's why the metaphysics, that explanation in the text is so important so that we can start to shift from believing what the ego has fed us about God and what God, light, and love is, because we're really brainwashed into thinking that that's annihilating and destructive, destroying. It's the opposite. And Jesus explains to us in the Course, everything is the opposite to you. Everything is reversals. You think what is love is scary, and you think what is scary is love. Oh, so it says the first two steps in this process require your cooperation. The final one does not. Your images have already been replaced. That light behind Jesus in the square, it's been there the whole time. If we do the first two steps, There's an opening. It may be subtle at first, like my clicks of recognition, where I just noticed, "Oh, I'm breathing a little easier. I'm going to stick with this." And then you start to accumulate and pay attention to all these, what at first appear small signs and then become like inarguable, that you just keep getting good signs. And they add up to the peace that passeth understanding. The brightness of this light, you can't ward it off with your thumb forever, you know? And by taking the first two steps, you will see that your images have already been replaced. Your darkness has already been replaced with light. Besides using this process throughout the day as the need arises, then he tells us 5 practice periods are required, but if you don't do them, you're forgiven. We're bound to do the workbook incorrectly, and we're forgiven for that. And we have to forgive ourselves. And if we do the workbook perfectly, you can bet your bottom dollar that the ego has taken over your practice. Because only the ego would be perfectionistic about doing the workbook. It's too harsh. The only reason that we would be running to do this 5 practice periods a day, plus every time we have an upsetting thought, plus once in the morning and once at night, is when we're really, really connected with the love of God. And then that becomes the irresistible attraction of love to love, which is written about in A Course in Miracles. And we're living from there now. And then this is all we want to do. That happens little by little over time. And here he calls it a process. He says, hold each attack thought in your mind as you use this sentence he gives us: I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts about, and then you just keep filling it in. Attack thoughts about Ukraine, attack thoughts about Israel, attack thoughts about Palestine, attack thoughts about my mother, attack thoughts about masturbating, attack thoughts about, you just really get honest with yourself and naked with Jesus. Attack thoughts about being naked with Jesus. I wasn't supposed to say, just like on and on. In the practice periods, be sure to include both your thoughts of attacking and of being attacked. So some of us feel like we're just very nice and we're really not attacking. We're not aggressive. If anything, to a fault, I let people walk all over me. I don't fall into that category. Yeah, you do. Because when you see yourself as the eternal victim, that is your way of attacking. They're just two sides of the same coin. Whether you think you're the victim or you think you're the victimizer, attacked or attacker, persecuted or persecuting, it still testifies to separation. It still testifies to a world of conflict, guilt, and unforgiveness. Be sure to include both your thoughts of attacking and of being attacked. Their effects are exactly the same because they are exactly the same. You do not recognize this as yet, although, dare I say, I think that this group is getting the hang of it. And you are asked at this time only to treat them, thoughts of attacking and being attacked, as the same in today's practice periods. We are still at the stage of identifying the cause of the world you see. That's a big, enormous, huge, fabulous stage to be at, because as we identify the cause of the world we see, we start to simplify. We get beyond all the complexities. We start to move from specifics to generalization and realize I'm never upset for the reason I think. I'm always upset because I believe I've separated from God and that I'm condemned to hell and that there's no way out of this. But that's just a thought. There is an escape from the world I see, and it's by giving up attack thoughts in the process of using the forgiveness practice. When you finally learn that thoughts of attack and of being attacked are not different, you will be ready to let the cause go. And I simplified these steps. I wrote a note to myself at the bottom of this lesson: 3 steps to forgiveness. Number 1, identify cause. Number 2, let go of the cause. Number 3, let God. Stay open and receptive. Now you're going to see this all over A Course in Miracles. We're at the end, and I would love to play you the song by Jill Scott. It's called Golden. It's beautiful. It goes along with that video I sent you guys, the one from Guruji Ma. Those of you who watched it really seem to enjoy it. I choose to be awake, and it goes with the golden light of the Holy Spirit.
Hey, oh, hey, yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm taking my freedom, pulling it off the shelf, putting it on my chain, wearing it around my neck. I'm taking my freedom, putting it in my car, wherever I choose to go, it won't take me far. I'm living my life like it's golden, 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 golden, living my life like it's 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 golden, golden. I'm taking my own freedom, putting it in my song, singing loud and strong, grooving all day long. I'm taking my freedom, putting it in my stroll. I'll be hot stepping, y'all, letting the joy unfold. I'm living my life like it's golden, 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 golden, living my life like it's 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 golden, golden. I'm holding on to my freedom, can't take it from me. I was born into it, it comes naturally. I'm strumming my own freedom, playing the God in me, representing His glory. Hope He's proud of me. Hope He's proud of me. I'm living my life like it's golden, 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 golden, living my life like it's golden, 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 living my life like it's golden, 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 living my life like it's golden, 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 living my life like it's golden, golden, living my life, living my life, living my life like it's golden. It really matters to me. Oh, living my life like it's golden, 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 golden. Living my life like it's golden, 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 golden. Living my life like it's golden, 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 golden. Living my life like it's golden, 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 golden. Living my life like it's golden, golden, golden.
In the email I sent out with Guruji Ma's video, I Choose to Be Awake, at the end of that meditation, which is only 30 minutes, she talks about relating to your ordinary life, moment to moment, as an adventure. Your life stems from this golden light within you, and it is your adventure. Just washing a dish, just smelling cut grass, It's your adventure. You're alive right now. And this light is the real you. Listen to the song. Music changes your mood. Yeah. Okay. It is so great to be with you. Thank you. Mwah. I'll see you next week.